So, is everybody set up with headsets who needs them? Marvelous. Elva, can we start? Excellent. Good afternoon and a very warm welcome to the first part of the public discussion of the 22nd FICIL High Council. It's really a pleasure to have you all here this afternoon. I think we have a real treat for everybody. The first part of our public discussion will be our panel on digitalization and the digital economy, and then we will have a coffee break, and then I will turn the baton over to my colleague Maris Vainovskis, who is going to lead a panel on economic crime. And now I'm going to switch to Latvian, so I guess you have to turn your ears on.
Hello and welcome to the FICIL public discussion on digital economy, small country, big potential opportunities for Latvia in the digital economy. Let me first of all introduce our today's panelists, and then I'm going to briefly talk about the rules of procedure, and then we'll kick the panel discussion off. Today we have prominent and distinguished speakers who have agreed and found the time to spend some time discussing, debating these important issues together with us. And I'll start from the panelist closer to me, Gatis Silos, the Sectoral Policy Department Director of the Ministry of Economy, and also the Acting Deputy Undersecretary of Ministry of Economy. He's responsible for Industry 4.0, digitalization of the industry, clusters, innovation, R&D, and many, many other issues. Next to him, we have Rinalds Muciņš, the State Secretary for Ministry of the Environmental and Regional Development. Since 2016 February, he is the State Secretary. He is a lawyer by background, and since 1995, Rinalds Muciņš has been working in various institutions of public administration and has been also the representative of Ministry of Health, Environmental Protection and Regional Development in various state-owned enterprises. He's responsible also for the governance. Baiba FICIL Digitalization Work Group Leader, the PwC Riga Office Head for the consultancy or consulting. She helps companies or consults companies on how to become leaner, meaner, more efficient. She began working with digitalization issues 20 years ago. She's been analyst, a coder, a project analyst, and IT auditor as well. Now Baiba is again helping companies to go digital. Ilza Semek, a FICIL Digitalization Work Group member, Cemek's client relationship manager. Cemex is the largest industrial investor in Latvia, manufacturing concrete and various concrete mixes and metal products and other products. Has been working with Cemex for 10 years, and in recent years has become the manager of the Cemex digitalization agenda. And Mikas Ozos, the chairman of the board of Telia Latvia. He has under his belt more than 15 years experience working in telecom sector. He is the Latvian ICT Association, Latvian Communication Association and Latvian Internet Association board member. In 2006 became the chairman of the board of the CR Telia Latvia, is in charge of the various operational issues. Telia Latvia entered Latvian market or came to Latvia in 92. It is fully owned by Telia company, a leading Nordic telecom operator. And I should also introduce myself. My name is Ingrid Kariņberziņa. I'm the FICIL Executive Board member, and I am responsible within FICIL for communication with AmCham, and I'm also a member of the Digitalization Work Group. So Thank you for coming, and as you can see on screen, this is our web page and hashtag that we ask you to use. Think about a question to our panelists. If you have a question to our panelists, send it in. You can send it in either of the working languages, Latvian, English, any other language spoken by anybody in this room. We'll be happy to answer your questions. So hope that you will actively engage in this panel discussion to make the panel discussion more meaningful for yourself and get the answer to a question that occupies your mind. A bit about the rules of procedure, some housekeeping remarks. Well, it is usually polite to give floor to the public officials first, and that's the way we have done that traditionally. This time we have decided to do it differently. We will start with the entrepreneurs who will present their experience, and then we'll ask the representatives of the Ministry of Economy, Ministry of Environment and Regions, and other representatives, public administration representatives here, to give their answers. Now, a bit of background information. Here you can see four quotes or four opinions of the FICIL members whom we asked, what do you think about the digitalization of Latvia? There is lack of innovative business models, as those business models are not in fact permitted by the current existing framework. Businesses are not encouraged or incentivized to introduce innovative business models. E-services are developed from a government perspective, not the business perspective. Private individuals have to provide their private data every time they go to a different institution. There should be a common personal data database. And maybe you have also heard about this index. This is the Digital Economy and Society Index compiled by a European Commission, and EU member states are ranked in this index based on different digital economy criteria. Latvia ranks 19th in the DESI index out of 28 member states. Estonia ranks 9th, and Lithuania ranks 13th, as ranked 13th. So we are in the last place in the Baltic Nordic region. Here on this screen you can see two of the most vivid examples. For example, the human capital, which is the top graph where we rank 24th among 28 member states, reflects the digital skills of the population. And then we also have the digital integration, where we've ranked a bit better, 23rd, which basically shows how well different solutions are integrated in business models. And we created digitalization working group, because FICIL members thought it important to have this discussion and to analyze what are the reasons for us ranking so poorly, 23rd and 24th in these two indices. And let me now turn the floor to Baiba Apine, who led the work of the digitalization working group, to explain the conclusions or the findings to us. Yes, indeed, I am the leader of this working group. We started the working group last autumn. We developed our opinion and the recommendations regarding the digitalization or digital transformation Latvia is going through, and we also recommended the collaborative activities that need to be implemented together with the government in order to achieve proper digitalization. We'd like to thank all the members of the working group for the time, effort and resources they committed to analyzing various challenges and generating the findings as well as recommendations for the government. I think it's a ripe time to discuss digitalization. Our primary objective was not to analyze the DESI ranking or where we rank among the EU member states. No, that was not the objective. In fact, we were analyzing the digital potential of Latvia in the context of the EU digital agenda. As Latvia is a member state of the European Union, we are part of the digital agenda post-2020, and when it comes to IT, a lot of EU's public investment has gone into developing various digital solutions, and if we use this investment, public investment, in a smart manner, post-2020 we'll be able to maximize the results or the returns. If digitalization regulation, which will come to force this October, will give us better clarity on e-signature or digital signature and digital ID, which, according to many businesses here in Latvia, will open or give us an opportunity to promote digitalization, then we will be on the crest of this digital wave, because there are a lot of EU member states that are implementing similar measures, and we have to be at the forefront, as I already mentioned. So looking at what is happening in terms of digitalization of business sector, we are unfortunately forced to conclude that many businesses are not even considering digitalization, and there are 4 reasons for that, basically 4 core reasons. First being digital ID, problems with the digital ID. Digital ID solutions are technically very complicated, underdeveloped. Digital ID cards, a good intention, with a major investment which would be used as a digital signature, has not been completed, has not been implemented. It is a work in progress, but we need to make sure that the necessary basis is created, and then there is a need for closer coordination between various sectoral ministries, or line ministries rather. Although there is a certain coordination, there is lack of ownership at times. For example, broadband access and network is at a very high level, because it is really owned by the Ministry of Transport and Communication, and people have various e-services. There is very demand for those services, but the services at least have been put in place. And if we look at DESI, we have ranked in this regard quite well, or quite high. Now, SMEs have been lost in translation. It is the sort of the third problem, or third group of problems. How to get SMEs on board of the digitalization process, and how to convince SMEs to do what is needed in order to make sure that they are fully digital, innovative, understand the digital and innovation processes or ecosystem, and know how to benefit from innovation ecosystem. We met with the Minister for Economy in the morning, and I was particularly happy about what he mentioned. He said that one of the goals is to ensure that the Latvian businesses can play a more prominent role in international supply chains or value chains. I think that is a very, very welcome objective, and digitalization can help us achieve exactly that. And in this regard, we are indeed on the same page with the government. Fourth group of problems is e-services. There are more than 300 e-services available to the Latvian people. Some of them, as I already mentioned, are better, some are worse in terms of quality. But I should also say that those services which have been developed by the EU funding, which is available for us over the 2007-13 programming period, and although these services have been developed by various government institutions, by basically translating the legal framework into an electronic format where you can just, tick all the boxes, is what we have got. What we want is services that we will have to have according to digital agenda post 2020, because the current services are approximating the end of their life cycle, and the business environment is changing as well. So those services need to be overhauled, revamped. So basically, those services have to be developed from a business perspective. For example, when you register a company, you go to a company house, you register your company, you get a VAT number or VAT registration number. You need to notify the State Revenue Service and notify the Statistics Latvia about the average wage you're paying to your people. But that's what you have to do. You have to go to different databases, but we want an integrated database, and you need to register yourself in the cadastre or land register of the land service in order to report the value of your land or property. So integration is the way forward, and I would like to encourage everyone to think closer about integration. So to sum up, to recap, given the challenges, what is our objective inside? So all in all, we have three areas of focus for future. So the development of EID or digital ID, great awareness raising on how you can use an EID or digital ID. ID solutions should be simple, should be user-friendly. Second group of activities would be new collaborative platforms with businesses in order to review those or redevelop those services and base them on a business perspective. For example, the e-services governance or development. If you look at the number of e-services that are in progress or have been in progress or under development, some 70% of those e-services, because of complexity, have not been completed. Actually, their development hadn't been completed. And the third and the biggest challenge, in order for us to enable the SMEs to function in a digital environment and use the digital signature to sign contracts and generate electronic invoices or digital invoices, and in order to be able to collect the readings of different manufacturing devices and equipment, and how to also put it in a legal framework, so that we could enable those SMEs to become business leaders and be leaders of or pioneers of digital transformation. Of course, it's nice to that we can use blockchain as a solution. We now can use crowdfunding. Those are sort of the examples of advanced technology, and in this regard we have innovative or progressive framework, but we need somebody to coordinate, to integrate everything, to consolidate. Thank you.
Visiem zināšanai, šodien FICIL mājaslapā ir publiskots šis ziņojums. FICIL nostāja attiecībā uz digitalizāciju, tas ir pieejams latviešu valodā un angļu valodā. Tā kā esot laipni aicināti iepazīties ar šo ziņojumu. Tas ir uz 5 lapām, un Baibas vadībā tas ir ļoti labs, ļoti pārskatāms. Ļoti liels darbs ieguldīts. Paldies, Baiba. Tālāk es došu vārdu Telija valdes priekšsēdētājam Mikum Ozolam. Mēs varētu uzklausīt viņa viedokli par reģiona kontekstu, par galvenajiem faktoriem, kas veicina Ziemeļvalsts un Igaunijas digitālās veiksmes tās pieņemam. Piemēram, ko mēs varētu mācīties no tā?
Labdien! Labdien visiem! Es gribu...
Okay. Ar tulkojumu?
Pause.
Sorry, is the interpretation now good? Okay. So good day, everyone. Thank you for all of the work that has been done. Today I will speak more about the emotions or ideas that come before the actual work, because obviously the idea comes first and then we have the work. So if we speak about regions, we are quite proud of the fact that Latvia has one of the fastest internets in the region. It's still the case, but what has changed? If we look at usage, people are mostly use digital applications for entertainment. We see that there's a lot of influence from global applications such as Facebook and the like. However, if we look at the business environment, how to use these applications in business, we are lagging behind our regional neighbors. If we look at our neighbors in the north, we see that they are approaching the digital economy from a different point of view. They are approaching it as a whole ecosystem. This is not something that is confined to one area of the economy. We have to be ready to change our whole system. We have to be ready to change our business procedures and models and to take advantage of the opportunities presented by digitalization. Secondly, Latvia is quite a small economy, therefore the public procurements in any area are very influential, and we are currently lacking the critical mass necessary for development in digitalization. We have to think of ways how to change the existing digital ecosystem. So, first of all, we have to prioritize digital economy at national level. It has to be across the board in all areas, not just some areas of the economy. And secondly, we have to be willing to change our business models also in the public sector, how we work, what we do. This has to be taken as a priority at the highest level, at the national level. Secondly, Latvia, which is not a very large country in the EU, we have to have the state take the lead on these digital issues, because the private sector alone cannot do it alone. And today, when we're speaking about the digital economy, this is a very welcome change. If a few years ago we were only speaking about digitalization, then another 5 years from now we'll be speaking about economy in general, because the economy is not possible without the digital element, as the world is changing. And as was already pointed out, things are changing, will continue to change. We have to be ready for this. We have to be ready to take advantage of the latest technologies, to invest in them. And it is perhaps not financially advantageous today, however, it will bring benefits in future. If we understand that we have to be even more powerful, we have to take a stronger standpoint on digitalization issues, then we will be able to achieve more. This is what we have been doing within Telia. We have been looking also at what's going on in our neighborhood countries. Thank you very much. And now I will give the floor to Ms. Ilse Semeika, who is head of a very interesting project at CEMEX. She's the head of the digitization project. Thank you. Our company works in an area where innovations are not always directly related to construction. If we speak about construction, people don't actually always immediately assume that it's an innovative area. However, production technologies are one area where CEMEX is actually one leading company and also a leader within Europe as a whole, and we could, in theory, actually remotely run our production facility from anywhere in the world. Another issue that we're working on is availability of information. In 2016, we began a digital transformation in CEMEX, and this autumn we will introduce a digital platform called CEMEX Go, which will provide our clients with an interface to our digital environment, and this will facilitate optimization of internal processes as well as client services. We understand that with the change in generations, more and more technology will come into the business environment, and we have to be ready for this. The CEMEX Go platform will allow us to bring the latest technologies not only to the documentation process, but also to the production and delivery procedures, where customers will be able to follow up on where their purchases are and estimated delivery times and so forth. Technologies are now being introduced in areas that have previously not been digitized, and in this respect we hope that the state, when the government, will also follow this approach. And national regulations must be aimed at promoting digitization instead of hindering it. We see that in many areas, for example, in the cargo shipment, waste management, various digital systems are being introduced, and we see this as a very positive signal that can have a positive effect on combating the shadow economy as well. At the same time, a significant problem in our view is the compatibility of these systems, which was already mentioned by Baiba and Mikus, and the responsibility for these IT issues is still divided among various ministries, and there is a lack of a unified approach, which also results in a fragmented e-management or e-administration of the state. And we hope that this fragmentation will be overcome, creating a unified, customer-oriented digital ecosystem. And in this respect, the customer is any citizen of the country. Our experience shows that introduction of digital systems is truly beneficial, especially in comparison to competitors, and we have not seen any legal hindrances in any countries that we work in. However, it is necessary to have a forthcoming approach from state authorities as well, for example, in relation to use of personal data. For example, we at CEMEX are paying salaries to many employees, and prior to issuing remuneration we have to check various state databases, for example, just to check if the person is still registered. And the company has to inform, businesses have to inform the state at various levels and provide various information. However, we feel that there is no sort of cooperation among the state institutions themselves, because we have to keep providing the same information to various different institutions. And this robs us of time, which in turn obviously creates hindrances for further development in the market. We look forward to the opportunity to use e-documents on mobile devices as well, be it a mobile telephone or a tablet computer. We in our opinion, the use of a USB device for being able to sign documents digitally is an outdated approach. Digitization has many different benefits, and if we look at this index that was already mentioned by Ingrid, and if we look at the global index, then why do we not see the benefits here in Latvia? We're a result in digital integration. We are one of the last countries on the list. In the online participation, we are 82nd out of 105 countries, while our neighboring Lithuania is number 17 and Estonia is number 22. Regardless of the fact that for 18 years we've already been living in the so-called innovation golden era, these digital innovations are still only slowly being introduced into public administration. Where no innovation or revolution has come easily, we need time and resources and motivation to move forward with the digital economy. And this is an issue of building the digital ecosystem for the state. This ecosystem will become the foundation for new business models and investments as well. We hope to see the public administration as the flagship of digital economy, which will provide to each citizen the understanding of the benefits provided by digitization, for example, saving time because you don't have to physically visit any institutions to submit your documents and so forth. This can also improve the opportunities to cooperate among various businesses and to network among each other. It will also improve the healthcare where, for example, our health data would be available to us ourselves through the use of the EID identification card, which we already have. Thank you, Ilse. Mr. Mucinj, we are very grateful to your ministry and the staff of your ministry for the forthcoming attitude that you have shown to us. We have already met in various working groups and spoken about these issues. Perhaps you can give a brief insight on behalf of the Ministry of Environment and Regional Development of where we are so far and where we are headed in future. Yes, thank you for this opportunity to join you here today to discuss what we have achieved so far and what we can do in future. And only through such a dialogue can we develop our country and see which directions we want to develop or focus on. Because the state must promote the development and the interests of all of the groups of citizens living within it in order to maximize the potential that we all have. And this also obviously applies to the business environment and the business environment's ability to take advantage of the opportunities provided by the state. How have we arrived to where we are today in the year when we celebrate the centenary of our state? I will not perhaps go into detail about various problems that we have had, but perhaps let us focus on the challenges that we face. Let us not look at it with such dramatics. We've been working on digitization for years now, but this is a road that never ends, and we still face various new challenges. We constantly will. This is what drives our development and our growth and creativity. This is actually a good thing because we are not stopping with what we have achieved. We are seeking new ways to further develop. So perhaps a brief insight on what the government is currently doing and what we have achieved. The government is working on issues on improving effectiveness of processes and their digitization. As of January 1st, there will be a new opportunity provided to everyone in Latvia, the e-address. So this will be available to both natural and legal persons. This will be an electronic address through which the entity will be able to communicate with the state. Also, from as of next year, there will be uniquely electronic communication among various state institutions. The issue of electronic data is very important. The government understands the importance of this, and we have to go in this direction. Our ministry has presented three most topical categories of data to the governments. So these categories are the ones that need to be revised in terms of digitization. And these are data that doesn't actually belong to the state. They are collected from the inhabitants, from the citizens, and we simply must figure out a way to return these data to their rightful owners. So there are various challenges that we have to overcome in this regard, but I'm sure that we will be able to do it. Digital skills and digital knowledge is another issue that we have to work on, both at national and regional level, because as was already mentioned, not everyone is currently equally skilled to follow the digitization processes. We have to identify who have the greatest problems in this regard, be it the elderly or people with mental disorders. We have to all make sure that we involve them in the digital development process as well. As regards the e-signature, I'm happy to say that the second version of the electronic signature has been welcomed with positive results. And it seems to be working better than the first initial version. We will continue to improve it because the overall goal of the government is to create a data-based nation, because data is what will make us smarter, better able to take various decisions, make analysis of the existing situation and forecast future events, be it economic growth or climate change. These data is increasingly accumulated in various databases. We are ready to share this data. Last year, we also launched the Open Data Portal, which is continuously being developed as well. Our next step is services which are not demanded, but which are just provided to citizens. We see various stories on Facebook about the importance of data and what it can be used for. These stories are not perhaps always positive, but government can use data positively. We know what's going on in society. We can understand what types of services are needed and provide these services to people, to businesses, and also ensure that these services are automatically provided. In conclusion, I would like to thank you for the opportunity to join you here today, to join you in this dialogue. We're open to new ideas because our road to development and growth is never ending. We cannot just rest with what we have achieved so far. We have to move forward. Thank you very much. Thank you. The Ministry of Economy is responsible for the business environment, and our minister, Mr. Ašerādens, has on several occasions said that one of the government priorities is the implementation of the digital agenda. Do you see the digital agenda being implemented indeed?
Yeah.
Yes, thank you for the question. The short answer is yes, we are definitely implementing digital agenda on a number of levels, and let me talk about the levels on which the Ministry of Economy in particular is working with digital agenda. So it's been mentioned over and over that digitalization or use of digital tools is quite a challenge for SMEs, and I can agree with this view. Those small businesses don't have the opportunity that the international companies or international branches who have mother companies have, where they just copy those solutions from a mother company. So an SME is a company which employs, a business which employs less than 250 people. So those are lifestyle companies, niche companies, and those are small businesses that face different challenges from the digitalization point of view. Now, when it comes to lifestyle companies, those lifestyle companies don't have the necessary resources to develop digital tools. These companies should have the access to ready-made and user-friendly tools. In order to promote the digital take-up, Ministry of Economy for about 10 years, together with Latvian ICT Association, has been implementing an SME micro company training program. We have 1,500 micro companies and SMEs have graduated from this training program, and the training is focused around freely available, freely accessible, user-friendly tools, because these companies most probably are not going to spend hundreds of euros on acquiring licenses for more complicated software. Most commonly, these companies mostly use Gmail to send an invoice that they have generated using free software. So that's the sort of the digital proficiency of those companies. Basically, having a computer, if you're a micro company, micro business, having a computer, using an email. So that's why we need to provide them with access to free of charge and easy to use tools. Now, those companies that are bigger, towards 249 employees, and I'm talking about, again, companies that don't have a mother company somewhere else, so either using an IT cluster or other platforms. Those SMEs are often included in a Latvian delegation which goes on an exchange trip to look for best practices abroad. For example, mechanical engineering cluster is very active participant of this program. Every year they have at least 2-3 such exchange visits to Germany, Finland, where digitalization is at a good high level, so they just go to industry leaders and learn their best practices. Because, frankly speaking, there are a lot of companies in Latvia who will tell you that, we can't use our private capital to experiment, and try various or several options. We are open to integrating or incorporating in our work ready-made solutions, and recently we went to Hamburg together with Mechanical Engineering Association, and we met with Bosch, SAP, and other industry giants who are ready to give SMEs ready solutions that need to be just used. And this is where the government should work closer with FICIL, should identify a sort of a list of ready-made or readily available solutions, because we are not unique. Most of our SMEs have their peers with very similar structure and practices in the Western European countries, and we can easily transfer those solutions from the peers. We have an enterprise modernization program, which involves training also. We are teaching them, or where the staff can learn how to use state-of-the-art technology, and we have structural funding available for training programs that not only provide general knowledge or general understanding, but can also give you an in-depth or specific knowledge for you to modernize your manufacturing process. And in recent 2 years we have trained already several thousand SME employees on how to use advanced technology. Now, when it comes to legislative initiatives or necessary amendments to the legal framework, I would like to underline that in 2017 the Ministry of Economy was very active in terms of pushing forward the car sharing initiative through the parliament, and there was quite a heated debate on this legislative initiative. But nevertheless, this is a good example of a very proactive attitude of the government, so that so to enable new business models to be used. And we're ready to also develop the legal framework for blockchain or any other innovative tool or technology. We are open to cooperation with SMEs. Thank you. Thank you. Now we would like to open the floor for questions, and let me kick off the Q&A session by asking Mr. Mucinc. I didn't show or get to the end of my presentation because I wanted to start on a positive note, but let's be real. FICIL Digitalisation Working Group has been looking into different statistics and figures, and our opinion is that not everything is okay, that it is not only about keeping going. We think that there is a major overhaul, rethinking required, because in Latvia 29% of the people are using the e-services or e-applications to receive services, whereas Estonia has this level at 71%. Why? How would you explain this? Well, the short answer, or the simple answer, is that we are a democratic country, we're a democracy, and we tell our people, here's a choice for you. But then there are also countries that sort of impose those services, or basically say that from date X you will have to use the digital service. And we had a similar discussion in the parliament regarding a digital address. In Latvia you can choose whether to use a digital address, whereas, for example, in Denmark you can't choose, you have to use it on mandatory basis. So probably we should be a bit more stricter, if you will, a bit more strict when it comes to implementing or promoting the take-up. Of course, there is a reluctance in the beginning because that is something new, requires an extra effort, and so on and so forth, and maybe it will lead to a loss of probably ratings, and then the awareness and education activities will need to be rolled out. Whereas, the explanation for this figure is that Estonians basically impose these tools on their population. Mr. Silos, do you think that the problem is that we are too democratic and people are not, encouraged or are not incentivized enough, or probably forced to increase their use of digital tools? Well, in a way, yes, we are too liberal. If you look at the fourth index of the DESI component, which is the take-up or uptake among businesses, you see that we are ranking pretty poorly in terms of the exchange of digital documents between the companies. I don't know where those companies which receive official letters or go through post actually live, because, I think that most of those companies just, write an email or use other digital tools. But nevertheless, when we decided that all the tax declarations and tax information will have to be submitted using your internet banking authorization, we forced a lot of people to open accounts with banks. And when we, for example, said that now businesses will have to exchange information in a digital format regarding excise goods, and if we will tell them that they will have to use a digital signature, then I think this uptake will increase. It is difficult for me to imagine, company sending a registered letter to another company. And I would say that the figure is so low, or the level is so low, because most probably you surveyed micro companies, real micro companies that are operating only at the scale of one city or one town, and they just find it a lot easier not to use digital tools. Now I would like to give the floor to Baiba. Yes, indeed, companies are not sending each other registered letters. They just ring each other up and have a conversation and talk to each other. Mostly those are contracts that could be digitized, and invoices should be further digitized. There's a lot of duplication in terms of hard copies and electronic copies. If, for example, a company buys grain or firewood, you can imagine, the seller who's working with them. So the seller prepares or generates an invoice, then it is being signed, and then it is being scanned by the payer and inserted into registers, in-house registers or databases rather. So there are a lot of companies that choose to invest as little as possible in digitalization of their printed documents or printed forms. I think that the government could help mend the situation or improve the situation by demanding only digital copies. I think that, it is several hundreds of euros that you will have to spend on digitizing your contracts on your documents, but the returns will probably not be as big. Well, am I also allowed to express my opinion? Well, it's not about the figures, it's rather about the trend. It seems that there is an increasing gap between us and Estonia. They have in the government an IT CEO who sort of is responsible for cross-sectoral coordination of digitalization. I don't want to shame the Ministry of Economy. They are doing what they can with the resources that they have and in scope of their competence, but I don't think this is prioritized enough at the government level. I think that digitalization should be a priority of the government, because this gap will only be increasing geometrically between us and other countries in terms of the digital uptake. And it's not about a ministry or digitizing documents. It is more about rethinking the procedures and developing or restructuring the processes, probably. It's not about companies only or businesses only. A question to both government representatives: which ministry or which state institution is responsible for digital transformation or digital economy? Well, I think it's the Prime Minister, because he is also chairing an IT council, advisory council, which deals with or focuses on digitalization. And then, of course, line ministers who are also on the IT Advisory Council. Will we have any remarks from the Ministry of Economy? Well, nothing to add. I wanted to show another slide to you. I apologize for switching slides while we are talking, but we have prepared a lot of information and we want to expose you to this information. So we analyzed in our work group and tested how e-governance is progressing compared, and we benchmarked Latvia against other countries. Let's start with other countries: Estonia, Finland, and countries which we all know where digital economy is progressing very rapidly, is being implemented very rapidly, and there is a coordination platform which is steered by a senior government official. There is centrally managed integration model. In Estonia it's called X-Road, and we know that it's also been implemented in Finland. I know that there's been a proposal to implement here in Latvia as well. So basically, if you want to become a member of the coordination platform, upon joining coordination platform, you give your consent to data being available to other stakeholders or other parties. We have chosen a rather different architecture, so there are bilateral agreements between the government agencies and services. If, for example, Ministry for Environment and Regions has an agreement, bilateral agreement with Land Service, and they pay for the information or for the data provided from Land Service registers. So companies, if they would be willing to cooperate or exchange the data, don't have a protocol for the exchange of data, single data exchange protocol. So can you provide any comments on whether we have understood correctly what is happening, and is this even on the government agenda? Well, when it comes to tools, our objective is to implement the scenario 1, the Finnish Estonian, and that's exactly what we're doing at the moment. We are trying to consolidate or integrate different government databases. There is a state regional development agency which is coordinating the activities in this regard to ensure that there is a efficient exchange of data between the government agencies. We still live in a feudal system where everyone, is his own master and a landlord, if you will, of the data, but we need to get rid of that, and we are doing that step by step, gradually getting there and consolidating or integrating the government databases. And you have Latvia.lv, which is the integrated platform, and the visible part of the iceberg. So we're somewhere in between. We're transitioning from scenario 2 to scenario 1. Yes, this is a very nice initiative, and I hope that you will get there as soon as possible. Another challenge is the sort of the grey box here, the businesses. And we want to make sure that the businesses can access, or there is data democracy where public data is open to businesses, and Ilse talked about or presented a case. Industry players who are major contributors to the GDP need this critical information and need to have quick access to this critical information in order to process it and produce new innovative products. So whatever you do, please, speed up.
So we have a question from Slido.com. Why is the state trying to invent a new wheel instead of using the existing solutions, for example, the Smart ID? Here we are hearing that various digital services in Latvia are always developed anew. We are not holding competitions or procurements for actual ready-made products to be purchased, but rather coming up with technical specifications for the development of brand new systems. Well, the answer would be that the state is trying to support local businesses. If we were to buy ready-made products, we would not be providing these opportunities for local businesses to be creative and develop, and they would not have this opportunity. Of course, we have our own history and historical experience, and not all ready-made products are suited for our specific situation, but mostly the idea is to give the opportunity for local businesses. But what companies are the ones that are receiving these opportunities? If are there many various IT businesses that can develop, and is this actually what the state should be doing? Well, in any case, there are various procurement procedures, competitions, and the most relevant solution wins. Well, perhaps we have some questions from the audience here, or perhaps someone who has asked their question on Slido would like to ask it right away. Perhaps we have a microphone?
Thank you. Thank you for a very comprehensive discussion. There's an old saying that says the best cure is prevention, and that's the discussion I'd like to lead with I'd like to have with the panel here. In our rush towards digitization and the fact that we are much more behind the other Baltic countries, maybe there's a silver lining, and my focus would be in the downside of digitization. We all know about all the problems that digitization has created across many different countries with some serious consequences. I don't think I need to go into examples. Hacking, theft, disruption of all levels of society. In particular, on the national security level, financial, corporate, individual security. My question to you is, what do you think are the downsides that in your development you're planning on, or what modes of prevention are you creating while in our rush towards digitization, and all in the context of building trust? Do I really trust what's going on in the digitization here in this country? I recall yesterday the Prime Minister was very surprised and maybe somewhat disappointed that there was a hacking into the, let's say, playing of, well, by hacking into the administrative court or the administrative council. And he said if that is really true, it would be a tremendous problem. I am surprised that he's surprised. So would you all please give your thoughts on what steps are being taken in the rush towards development of digitization to create a greater security, to create a greater trust at all levels of society? Thank you.
Thank you, Hamid. So who wants to answer first? Yes, well, I can kick off the discussion. This is a very good discussion that we need to have. However, if we compare digitalization to paper documents, if we imagine the archives of your company stored in a container in your courtyard, have you checked the security on this container? However, and then looked at the results of these tests. However, digital information is stored in online, where the security of it is regularly tested and the test results are analyzed, and these the security is always followed up on. So we can't say that digital documents are not secure, because what about the security of paper documents? The fact that we are thinking more about security and we will have to be devoting increasing attention to this, I do agree with you. We are on the very beginning steps of our digitization, so we will have to continue working on this. Well, I'd like to add, of course, there are the various problems that we can find in the whole process, but the main idea is that we have to admit that we are lagging behind others and we have to seek solutions, and only then can we actually seek proper solutions and find ways to catch up. Yes, we do have to change something. We have to agree on what to change. That has to be the first step. Perhaps we could hear the opinions of the government representatives as well. Well, as regards security, of course, these issues are increasingly topical, as well as the expenses connected to them. The government is placing increasing focus on this and also on improving overall security, because only through that can we become more efficient in our work. We are working on this. The elections are coming on October 6th. This is also the security of elections is something that we are focusing on, because we are seeking or using various electronic and digital technologies also in the election procedure. Perhaps you can respond to what Mikko Suozol said, that we have to identify or admit where we are and understand what solutions are needed. Yes, of course, that is exactly what we are working on. We are continuously improving our system, both in terms of security as well as other aspects, and we are willing to enter into dialogue with business representatives to move forward. A question from Slido. Is digitization not one of the solutions for the lack of workforce? This is perhaps a question for the Ministry of Economics. Yes, thank you. The answer definitely is yes. Digitization and automation is the answer to the lack of workforce, and also the answer to how to keep people in our regions in the countryside, because it can allow for remote access to workplaces. And the preconditions are there. Internet coverage in Latvia is actually very good. So the more we introduce various automation technologies, this will allow for people to get to better jobs and better income and move up in the workforce work cycle. And we understand at the Ministry of Economics that digitization is very important for these issues to be resolved. As I'd like to add that the digitization will reduce the lack of a workforce which could be replaced. However, we also have to have enough workforce that can service technologies. And here we return to the question of whether we have enough skills and enough people skilled to use and service technologies, and whether SMEs have such employees. As I mentioned, we are very actively working on introducing and implementing various technological solutions. And our main focus at the moment is to find the best practices that we can bring over to our system. What I'd like to emphasize is that the change of turnover in technologies is so rapid that we must be able to the technologies have to be able to repay for themselves within a matter of 2 or 3 years. Here we have to look for the best practices around the world and build on them, and this also goes for security issues. We know very well that hackers are extremely active across the globe, and do we want to be the victims of various hacking experiments? Probably not. And I think we could have another question from Slido and then one last round of comments. So what we have a lot of likes for is the question of where else in the EU do we still have a paper format for the official journal? Is it not time for us to sort of abolish this archaic practice? Well, I don't know if there's still a paper format anywhere in the EU, but we do have a plan of discontinuing the paper publication of the newspaper, and this will it will be completely digital, and this will happen quite soon. Our next question: when and whether and what kind of actual activity take place? Well, our day-to-day work is actual activity. We are moving step by step forward. I already mentioned the open data, the e-address. These are the steps that we are working on most today. Of course, also increased investments in the introduction of various digital solutions, where various line ministries are working on their own digital solutions, supervised by the Ministry of Environment and Regional Development. Of course, we've had some delays, so the solutions have not come as quickly as had been planned, but they are in the works nonetheless. But do you think that by doing what we're doing, we will be able to improve the situation? The solutions proposed are also changing, and the government's position is changing. The indicators are improving. Of course, we'd like to see more rapid growth. We will think about other steps that can be taken, or more rapid steps that can be taken. As mentioned, I think that we need to have more compulsory measures, because people don't know about many measures and therefore they are not used. And there are certain steps that we would like to take, that we will propose be taken in order to ensure that development takes place faster. Well, perhaps we can formulate it more friendly. So we have a question from Mikus Oz. Also, I have a rhetorical question. I agree that the technological turnover is becoming ever more rapid year by year. But then for the public sector, all ICT procurements are basically hardware procurements, whereas we could procure, for example, cloud services that would allow for less purchases of hardware, which becomes outdated within 2 to 3 years. However, unfortunately, from the public sector, currently all procurements are mostly only for hardware. Well, I think this was probably a question aimed at Mr. Mutin. Well, it was a rhetorical question. I'm sure that it may not actually have an answer. Well, this year in February, if I'm not mistaken, the government adopted the cloud computing strategy, and by July, several ministries have to jointly submit a action plan on this matter. So the government has already expressed its overall opinion. We are going in this direction. Well, if I understand correctly, this strategy provides for the building of a new cloud computing system rather than taking advantage of those already available on the market? Well, there are various conditions that are taken into account in this strategy. Obviously, we can't use public products for military or confidential documents, but for the open data, we are planning on using products available on the market. Well, my last question then, perhaps for the ministries, how can businesses help and support the government in the digital transformation process? Well, I'll go first. Right off the bat, I can say perhaps don't steal our employees, because often enough when the project is in the initial stages, the employee is working in the ministry, and then at the end of the project, the employee is already working on the side of the business partner. So obviously we have various limitations. We are fighting for increasing our salaries, but the state is sort of on the losing end. We have a shortage of many specialists, and the next way that businesses can help is advice and proposals. We all live together. We have to hold a dialogue. We have to work together to seek solutions. So once again, I am happy to be here today to be able to have a dialogue with you, talk about these topical issues, even if they are sometimes unpleasant, but leads us to better mutual understanding, and through that we can work on new solutions. In my opinion, I think one of the main advantages of the state is that we are able to achieve or reach a large number of businesses and a large audience. We are working together with various associations and unions. We can easily communicate with basically any of the top 500 or top 1,000 businesses in the country. What we would like to see is the best practices to be shared among or by businesses in Latvia. If they're not ready to experiment with the latest technologies, then they can perhaps use the already tried and proven true technologies. You can see how these things are working in Finland or Germany or elsewhere. You can go on site, see how these systems are being used there, and then bring them over to your business. For example, we have 2 or 3 examples of best practices, then we can promote these to a large number of businesses throughout the country. If you see such a best practice in, for example, IT or any other sector, then feel free to bring it to the attention of the ministry, which can then promote it to the other businesses around the country as a best practice that can be used. And honestly, we are aiming to help businesses introduce various new models. I have a question for Baiba and Mikus. So what would be the main elements that you'd like to see in state administration to promote the digital transformation? So I'll go first about the emotions and ideas. First of all, I'd like to thank the people working in state administration on IT and digitization issues. I do not want to disregard what they have already done, because a lot has been achieved and they are working as best they can, especially in this competitive environment where ministries are losing their top employees to the private sector. I think that in this regard, IT and digitization has to be a priority for the government, and without that, nothing will change. Ilsen, please. Well, I think we already mentioned the main problem points for which we'd like to see quick solutions introduced. So the electronic signature being one of them, and access to data that is important for companies. But at the same time, I'd also like to say that in our working group, looking at our own experience, I could not mention specific examples of where our company has seen actual obstacles from the state or in the communication with the state. It's usually just a problem of understanding each other or working effectively together, because only through effective cooperation can we improve our standing in, for example, this rating of 82nd most effective country. I don't think all SMEs have the opportunity to visit partners abroad to look at the best experiences. Does the state perhaps have best practices that it can already propose, for example, by looking at the experience of other states as a whole? So do you have such best practices listed? Well, yes, as a state we are cooperating with the Nordic neighbors, and obviously our Nordic neighbors are also the model that we want to work towards. But what is different for us is the amount of resources available. Obviously, the resources we have are quite smaller than for our Nordic partners. However, there are various models of financing that we can also look at. But we have to understand that if we want to receive more and more services from the state, then we have to be ready to pay for them as well. For example, in Estonia, they are devoting more percentage of GDP to various IT services provided by the state. But obviously, we are learning from them. We are exchanging experiences and expertise, and I think that working together, we will be able to achieve a lot. The Ministry of Economics, as well as the Environmental Regional Development Ministry, as well as the IT cluster, we are taking part in joint projects such as Skills Plus and Digino. And within these projects, we are sharing information among Baltic Sea region countries: Germany, Denmark, Sweden, Estonia, Lithuania, Poland. So we are sharing our experience on the Industry 4.0. For example, my colleagues are just today attending a Digino event in Estonia. And such events are organized in all of our countries in the region. At first, when we joined this project, I thought that we would see in Estonia something that was completely unimaginable for us. Actually, they are working in quite similarly to what we are doing, and sometimes it is indeed the fact that we have to take more pride in what we have achieved, and the way that statistics are collected also play a role. But in a nutshell, I have to say that we are living in a very innovative region on the global scale, and we have the opportunity to learn immensely from our neighbors and take advantage of their experience. Thank you, Baiba. Do you have something to add on behalf of the work group? Yes, well, the main thing that I want to say is that, of course, I'd like to thank the staff of the ministries and other state administrative bodies that are taking care to provide the IT solutions that we have, and also our network coverage, which is one of the best in the EU. Obviously, this is something that we have to continue working on. But I think that our success globally is dependent on how easily businesses can access the data held by public authorities, and how they are able to use this data for their development and provision of new services. Another thing we'd definitely like to see is one leader, one head of the digitization issue, which would tackle the challenges at hand one by one and sort of lead the whole government state administration in the process. Thank you. In conclusion, FICIL has stated a goal that Latvia has to become the most attractive place for business in the Baltic Sea region. We definitely hope that this goal is also integrated into the digitization process of the state. We hope that we will not rest with what we have achieved, and we will continue our development. So we will meet again next year and see how far we've come.
I now have the honor to announce a coffee break, and then in 30 minutes, Maris Vainovskis, Economic Crime. See you then. Thank you.